Alright, so today I'm going to be making my life a lot easier. So outside of YouTube, the other thing that I do is I'm a touring musician. So I spend a lot of my time on the road playing shows all over the country. Now, at the moment, I'm doing quite a lot of miles with a show that is very fortunate to be in some quite big venues. But as a result, our gear gets carted around a lot and, things are in and out of vans all the time. They're on and off stages. They're not always handled by us. Sometimes there's a crew at the venue that do all the sort of loading in and out. So, the gear can sometimes get bumped around and the score. You don't want your stuff to get damaged on the road. So one of the things that I use on this tour is in-ear monitoring and a guitar wireless. So as a result, I've got a case with my in-ear monitors in. I've got my guitar wireless system in another box. I've got a box full of cables that I use. I've got extension leads. I've got loads of different stuff that I have to plug in every single show. So what I'm doing is I'm putting together a rack. And this rack unit is going to house my in-ear monitors, my guitar wireless, all the antennas that I need for all my wireless systems. It's also going to be my main power source. So I'm going to run all my power off this rack as well. So for my amp, my pedal board and everything in the rack will also be run off it. I'm also going to put in a drawer which is going to house all of my spares. So it's going to have all my cables in, it's going to have my in-ear packs, it's going to have my batteries, my spare strings, everything I need to get through the gig. Now what that means for me is I can literally put this box down at a gig, take the front and back covers off, plug a few cables in, and I'm ready to go. So we're going to make my life a lot easier in this video. So before I show you what's going in the rack, I just want to let you guys know this is a partially sponsored video. So the guys at Adam Hall and LD Systems have hooked me up with quite a few pieces of gear for this rack build. Some of this stuff I've bought with my own money, which I'll explain along the way, and some of the things they've provided for me. I'm not getting paid for the video, but they have provided me with some quite expensive gear for the purpose of me making this rack build. But as always, all the thoughts and opinions in the video are my own. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the case itself. So this is, it's quite hefty. It's actually, admittedly, a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's a 6-unit rack case from Flight Pro. So I got this from Thomann. I bought this with my own money. Can't remember exactly how much it was, but I will put a link to that down below in the description. I want to say it was around about the £200 mark, but I may be wrong there. But that's about the kind of price I spent on this. So the reason I went for this case is, you're going to see the side of me a lot in this video, is the front and back covers are quite deep. Now that is really important because this is going to be my main power source on stage. I didn't want to have to unplug all the power supplies every single show because I've got a rack mounted power supply. So I wanted to be able to just put the lids on and go. So I'm going to open this up now just to show you what's inside. Aside from all of the paperwork and miscellaneous things that I'm dropping on the floor, it's also so, right, there we go, everything's out. So yeah, the other reason I wanted this rack was because this actually has the rack mountings on both sides. Now a lot of touring racks, you may only end up rack mounting stuff to one side, but with this I can actually mount stuff in the front and the back, and that was quite important for this build because I do want some things that I can access on stage and some things that are just utility like my power supplies. So this is the case I'm going to be using. I don't know if there's a set front or back to this. I'm going to assume the one with the logo on the side is going to be my front. This is the rack case that I'm going to be using, and then inside that rack case there's a bunch of stuff. So this is my in-ear monitor kit. This is from LD Systems, and it's the U500 in-ear monitor system. I've had this system for maybe 2 years now. So this has been very, very reliable. LD sent me this back in 2021, I think it was. And this is a fantastic in-ear setup. I've used this for probably 300 or 400 shows, and I've never had a problem with it. So I love this thing. And it's not that expensive either, as far as wireless in-ears go. Quite a reasonably priced piece of gear. I should have probably unboxed this before the video. This is a 3-unit rack drawer. So this is going to replace a case that I've been carrying around with me with all my cables and all my spares in, and this is going to live in the rack as well. Funny story with this, when this arrived, these keys were inside the drawer, but the drawer was locked. So I had a bit of a job actually getting the keys out. It wasn't meant to come locked, but I think something happened in transit and the drawer had kind of gotten locked with the keys inside. So luckily I was able to kind of pull the corner forward just slightly to get the keys out. But yeah, that was locked and I got it. But that's going to be my main storage unit. They've also sent me this Win42 guitar wireless system. It shows microphones on the front because you can use it with microphones as well. But this is going to be my guitar wireless system in my rack. So this is one of the things that LD have provided me with along with the rack drawer. They've also sent me this, which is an antenna rack mount kit. And I've just dropped all the cables all over the floor. This is going to be where I hook all my antennas up to so that wherever I am on stage, I've got a bit of antenna coverage from the back of the rack. This is going to go at the rear of the rack and it's going to have the antennas for my guitar wireless and my in-ears. The antennas just help the signal project on stages. So this is going to be really useful. That's a nice utility piece that they've sent me. The next thing is something that I bought myself. I bought this from Thomann and this is a rack light. So that's just going to go in the top of the rack and illuminate everything below it just so I can see what I'm doing on stage. I also have my power distribution unit. So this is going to go on the rear of the unit and then I'll be able to plug everything into this. So my guitar amp, my pedal board, all of the stuff that's in the rack will run off this and then I've just got to plug one cable in when I get to the show and I've got power. They also sent me a spare receiver pack for my in-ear monitors because the one I have has done a lot of gigs and it's showing some signs now that, it's been on the road for 2 years solid. So they sent me a spare one that I can use as a backup. I've also bought some rechargeable batteries which I'm going to mount in the rear of the rack as well because, batteries cost a lot of money and I go through a lot of batteries every week, so I thought I'd invest in some rechargeable ones so that I can literally be completely self-sufficient. So that's kind of everything that's going to go in the rack. So now we really just need to start putting it together. So let's get started. So this rack has these kind of connectors, which actually, if you look at some racks, there are set unit height lengths. So there are only screw holes at the exact heights of a 19-inch rack unit. But this one, you can actually slide these around. So it's actually really useful. So what I actually need to do first of all is I need to just take all of these out so that I can actually start putting things in. So they literally just come out, which is really cool. That's very handy if you've got, a piece of gear that is maybe slightly too big or too small. You're not kind of confined to the exactness of the rack height. So I'm just going to slide all of these out and then start putting some things in. Also going to take them out of the back just because I'm going to be doing some stuff in the back anyway. So I think it makes sense to take all of these out right now while I'm doing it. Okay, that was a bit of a job. Right, so I have got this planned out in my head, how I want this to go. Now, I'm going to go on record now and say things rarely go to plan when I wing them, but I am kind of doing this on the fly. I've got an idea in my head how I want this rack to be, and I've kind of drawn out a few rough plans for it, but obviously this is the first time I'm putting it together, so we can probably expect some mistakes. So the first thing that's going to go in is I want my rack drawer to be at the bottom. So the first thing I'm actually just going to put some of these bolts back in, because obviously I need some rack bolts for the drawer. So I'm going to put the first two in. Now the downside to this system is that you can't actually preset the height. So this is actually going to be interesting. I don't actually know how I'm going to get the upper two bolts in. So let's see what happens here. This might be the first mistake on camera. So let's see how this part pans out. So the first thing I'm going to do is take two of the screws out. Maybe I should do this on the floor. Maybe I should put that maybe there. This might work better. Make sure I put the drawer the right way up, because you don't want your rack to be upside down. Okay, right, so that fits, but now the screw holes, I automatically assume the screw holes will be at the top and bottom of the rack like they normally are, but they're not on this one. So I have to kind of manually align these with a screwdriver. So maybe I should just do 2 more while I'm at it. I don't know how I'm going to get the last piece in. I think that might be a bit of a pain. I'm anticipating the last rack unit is going to be a little bit of a nightmare to get in, but let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, so this movable bolt thing seemed like a really good idea at the time. I can see that this is a slight inconvenience. It's not terrible, but it's not as easy as if the heights were kind of predetermined. All right, and there we go. First piece of the rack is done. That is my drawer. That's where I'm going to be keeping all of my cables and other assorted things. So everything else now is going to go in the 3 spaces above it. All right, next up is my in-ear receiver, and this LD Systems in-ear receiver actually comes with some rack ears, which is great because this is only a half rack unit, so I need these to actually bulk it up to the full rack size. So this is actually going to be offset because it's got one long ear because it's got an antenna mount on there, and also a short one for the other side. So it's going to be slightly offset, but I can kind of live with that. Ready to rack mount. So there is a port here that I could mount an antenna on the front if I wanted to. I'm going to start with the antennas all on the back via the back panel. If I find that I get any issues with my in-ears, I can always move it to this point if I need to. So this is going to go into the next slot on the rack. So let's just get this one plumbed in very quickly. All right, unit number 2 is in place. So there is my in-ear monitor receiver right above my drawer. The third thing I'm going to put in is going to be the guitar wireless. So the guitar wireless that I'm using is this Win42 system that LD have very kindly sent me. So let's open this up now. So this is actually a dual system, which means I can actually have 2 different guitar wirelesses at the same time. Now, I'm not going to be using 2 at the same time, and I've just opened this upside down. I would have assumed the side of the label was the top side, but there we go. I'm going to be using 1 at a time, and I'm going to have 1 as a backup, because really for me, I'm really big on having contingency plans. So this has 2 separate packs, which I'll open up and show you in a moment, with the antennas for each pack. More antenna cables, I'm not short of those. These packs run on these really cool kind of mini XLR to jack cables. There's some batteries in there. There's more antenna stuff. Actual antennas. I don't know what that is. That is a cable of some sort. And a power supply. And more batteries. This is, even though I've opened it upside down, this is a full rack unit. So this will take up an entire space on the rack. I'll just take the user manual out for later on in case I need that. This actually comes with a really good case. This is actually a really nice kind of molded ABS case, which in itself would be pretty good on the road, but I'm making sure everything's definitely safe in the rack. So there it is. That's the LD Systems Win42. It's basically 2 different guitar wireless systems in one. Both have independent ins and outs. But my aim here is that if I've got a problem, I can just switch my cable from one to the other and then I'm away. At some point, I'm probably going to look into some kind of switching system so I don't have to physically unplug a cable. But for now, that will kind of work nicely, I think. So this one, I'm going to take the feet off because it doesn't sit in the rack properly. And then I'm going to get this put in. There we go. The guitar wireless is in. And the other thing I want on the front is my rack light. And that's going to sit right there. And that's just going to illuminate the front of the rack. So that if I'm looking for something in the drawer mid-gig or I'm adjusting something on here, I've got this light to help me out. So this should be quite an easy one to fit because it's very lightweight. I actually did initially think that these completely movable rack screws might be a little bit of a pain, but actually this has been a lot easier than I anticipated. It's quite nice to have that flexibility. and I did envision that this last unit would be a bit of a pain to get in place, but actually, yeah, it's very, very simple. This was actually a very good choice of a rack. I've actually made my life even easier, which was the whole point of this. The whole point of this is to make my life easier. It reduces the amount of setup time, the amount of clutter, the amount of stuff I need to carry and worry about on the road as well, because there's nothing worse than, trying to prep for a gig and be worried if you've got everything, especially when you're packing down after a show, worrying if you've got everything, making sure everything's got to the van. If I can reduce my rig in this way, then, I know that I'm kind of a lot more relaxed because I don't have as many things to be concerned with when it comes to packing down. And there we go. That is the front of the rack done. So we've got the drawer, my in-ear monitors, my guitar wireless, and my light, which is going to illuminate everything. Now the back of the rack is where I'm going to house my power and my antennas. So the depth of this rack drawer has thrown the first spanner in the works for this build, because I had the vision that my power strip would go at the bottom of the rack. But this is a very deep drawer, so that's actually not going to fit. So this actually needs to go slightly higher up. But in doing this, I'm now actually reducing this space, because what I'd had in mind, this would go at the bottom like that, and that my antenna would go at the top like this, and then I'd have this gap here where I could keep my rechargeable batteries and also have access to things here. But if I have both of these things in there together, I've massively reduced my available space there. So herein lies my first issue. So what I think I'm going to do to start with is, instead of using this right now, I'm going to put this at the top. So I've still got the space here. And then I'm going to run all the antenna cables through the holes in the front. The guitar wireless has a hole either side where an antenna can go, and there's a space there for the in-ears to have one. So I think I'll mount my antennas on the front for now, even though I did want them on the back. I didn't want them on the front, but for this point in time, I think I will do that, and then I will find another use for that antenna cable at some point in the build. So yeah, that's the way it's going to have to be. So my power supply is going to have to go up top like this, and then I will get everything else inside there in some way. So I think that's going to be the plan. So let's get this one mounted in, and then I can try and figure out what else I need to do. I'm sure I'm going to find another reason why that power strip isn't going to work there at some point when I'm wiring this thing up, but for now that is there. So now I need to consider how I'm going to put all of this together in terms of wiring. So each thing inside needs to get wired in. So I'm going to start with the antennas. I'm going to get those in place because they're going to sit in the front of the rack. Then I'm going to turn the rack back over and figure out what the hell I'm going to do with all the other stuff. So back to the front of the case. Based on the weight of this thing already, I may or may not be regretting this, but it's going to save me a lot of time when it comes to set up and pack down, so I'm kind of thankful in that sense. Okay, so it's actually quite a tight space in here to work in. I should have probably done some of this stuff before plumbing some of these units into the rack, but hey ho, you live and learn. I'm looking for the little port on the side of the guitar wireless, which is, can't seem to find it now. There. Okay. So those little ports are where those antenna adjusters are going to go. I should definitely have done this before I plumbed it into the rack, shouldn't I? Okay. I'm going to take the guitar wireless out for a moment while I plug some stuff in, because I've made an error. Surprise, surprise. I wasn't joking when I told you that things would go wrong in this build. Okay, so these little things the antennas hook onto, these need to go in first because you can't really reach them from the back of the rack if you've got big hands like I do. So once that's on, the aerial simply just clips on like so, and that's my aerial now for my guitar wireless. This is going to be one on the other side for the other channel as well, so I'm going to put that one on too. So while I'm doing this, I'm actually going to put the one on for the in-ears as well, which I may have already taken up the case and put on the desk somewhere. I'm going to do that now because knowing my luck, I will need to take the unit apart again, which I don't really want to do. So again, I probably should have done this before I rack mounted it because it's still quite fiddly, but I've got a little bit more room to work with than I did with the side of the guitar one. Alright, so that's in. Now I need to just get the guitar wireless back into its rack slot. Alright, there we go. We're done. Alright, so that is everything in the rack, plumbed in, ready to go. Now I can just put the antennas on. So there's going to be one of these either side for the guitar wireless, which obviously I can extend to get me some extra range on stage. One of those for each channel. Then the antenna for my in-ear system, which is going to go here. Like so. So that is the front of the rack ready to go. So yeah, we've got two antennas, a light, guitar wireless, ear monitors, a drawer for all my stuff. Now I need to start wiring this all together and then turn it on and hopefully some lights come on. So I'm going to pop the front back on this now once again because I'm going to be working in the back and I don't want to put any strain on any of the things in the front of the rack. So we're going to keep this closed for the time being while we get everything plumbed in. Alright, so now I'm going to wire this up and try and make it as neat as I possibly can. So the first thing I need to do is really think about if all of the stuff I'm going to plug into the back of the rack is going to fit, or do I need to move the power supply? So as long as all of my power supplies face downward, like so, we'll be okay, because we can't pass this line, because obviously this is the point where the rack case will go. You just check the case can go on with those things in, and it can. So that's exactly the reason I wanted this case, because it allows me to leave everything plugged in as well. So I can just get up, plug it in, and ready to go. So in the back of the rack, to try and keep the cabling neat, I'm going to be using loads of these little cable tie retainers that you've probably seen loads of people use on pedal boards. These are great for just keeping cables where they should be. So I'm going to start with the easy thing, which is just plugging in the 3 antenna cables. Because in theory, what could possibly go wrong there? There's just 3 cables to connect. Once again, I've not left myself the biggest amount of space to do this job, but I don't think it'll be too painful. I think I can see the ports, so even though it's going to be a little bit tight, I think I can manage. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to see in the back of the rack as I'm doing this, so what I will do is I will get some close-up shots of the wiring inside as well, so you can see what it actually looks like once I've done this. This is probably going to be the hardest part, just because these need to be twisted. Everything else is kind of like a push-in cable, whereas these need to be twisted on. So, let's start from there. Okay, so this is actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, because the guitar wireless protrudes over the top of the in-ear wireless. Maybe I should have switched the 2 units around, which I think I will do. I think I'm going to do that. Even though I've kind of committed to this layout, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to switch my guitar and in-ear systems around, mainly because if I have an issue at a gig, it's going to be much easier for me to fix the issue. And again, that's also a big factor in my planning for this rack, is that things need to be easy to get to. So if there's ever a problem, I can easily grab something and fix it. And if I need to change the aerial cable for whatever reason, and it's currently unreachable because of the way this is set up, that's not ideal for, you know, a mid-show cable failure. So I'm going to do that right now and save myself any future headache. And also, actually, in the interest of sanity, I'm just going to connect these now and then feed it into the rack pre-connected, because I'm saving myself more time again. And then I will tidy the cables up once they're in there. So that's actually wired up now with the antenna in place. I'm going to do the same actually for this one, because this is the one I was having trouble with, but I'm just going to pre-connect that right now. I might actually, I'm thinking about practical solutions as I go here. I'm actually going to change where the antenna is. I would prefer it on this side, but actually the cable will come across my main ins and outs, and I'd rather it tucked neatly down this side, so there's actually no chance that I could pull the cable out when I'm plugging in XLR cables at the start or end of a show. So I'm actually going to do this very quickly as well. This is the good thing with, you know, kind of building racks, I guess, is you learn things about what works and what doesn't work. And right now I'm learning a lot, because I had this mapped out in my head one way, and yeah, the way that I mapped it out obviously wasn't very practical. I was thinking of it more in an aesthetic way, I guess. So now that I'm thinking about this practically, I'm learning a lot about what I need to actually do to make this work for me. So now I just need to put everything back in. Okay. Now, this is the committed layout. So now the guitar wireless is the lower one and the in-ear is the top one, which is fine. That works for me. So now I need to think about cabling this all in together. So once again, I'm going to pop the front back on. I promise you I will not be changing the order at the front of the rack again. That is it. I'm done. I'm committing. That is it. If that doesn't work, I will just make do. Because now I want to get this thing wired up. So I can see now my area cables are in place. And actually, because of the way I've wired them, they're actually quite neat. They're actually sort of tucked to the side, which is nice. And now, you're not going to be able to see this on camera very well, but this is very heavy. I have actually got better access to everything now, because previously this unit here, which is the guitar wireless system, was above the in-ear system, which is this slightly smaller one. I'm just trying to get the angle right on the camera. This one here, which is actually half the depth as well. So it was quite hard to get to the cables, but now I've actually got a lot of space up here inside the rack where I can actually get to everything I need. So that's very good. So let's start plugging things in, and hopefully this all works by the time I'm done with it. So I think this is the AC adapter for, I think this is the one for the lights. Now I need to check this because I have just dumped all of my cables onto my desk. No, this is the one for my lights. So this goes along with a plug converter that I've lost, and that's going to power that for me. What have I done with that? It might be this one. I might be using the power converter for something else. So this is for my rack light. So let's get this one plugged in. I'm pretty sure I have another EU to UK power supply here somewhere. I hope I do. I hope I have one here somewhere. Rack light. This is the plug for my in-ears. I know that because I've had it for so long. I'm going to put that over this side so it's a little bit more out of the way. So now I need to find a plug for my guitar wireless, which I'm pretty sure I have a spare adapter in. This is the box that I've always carried, which is full of miscellaneous everything, which I'll show you in a moment. But in here, I'm pretty sure I have plugs that I need. And I also need a UK to European plug adapter, or the other way around, sorry, European to UK plug adapter for my guitar wireless until I get around to buying a UK plug like I did for the actual in-ear system. Because the LD stuff, because it comes from Germany, it comes with EU plugs. So initially you will get the 2-prong plug rather than the British 3-prong. And that will power that. So that is actually everything inside the rack that way now that needs to be powered. So I am now going to start installing some of these things and neatening up some of the cable runs, because I don't really want any cables just kind of trailing or hanging. I sort of want them to be as neat as possible. I'm going to try and mount them all to the top and sides of the unit. Alright, everything is wired up somewhat neat. It's pretty neat inside. Neat enough that I'm happy that it's not going to cause me any problems. Now the only thing I've got left to fit now before we test it out is my battery charge. So my logic behind this is, I really do burn through batteries on the road, and I am using an in-ear system and guitar wireless that use AA batteries. So I thought I would get a battery charger. So this one, I am just going to use some Velcro, like a pedalboard Velcro. I'm going to mount it inside somewhere, maybe like there. Somewhere where I can just easily reach in and pull out batteries. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the best side, because this side is where all my other connections are going to happen. So I'm literally going to treat this like I'm building a pedalboard. I'm going to use regular pedalboard Velcro. I'm going to cut some strips of both types and lay it down inside. So let's see how much we roughly need. Might not actually need that much, because this is quite a small piece. I'm going to do 2 vertical ones, I think. About that long. So these are going to be the internal side. The point of this is just to hold the battery charger in place. It doesn't really need to kind of have any other function other than that. I just want the battery charger to sort of stay where it needs to stay. 2 pieces of the other side, and these are for the back of the unit. Roughly the same size. I don't need to be super neat here, because this is literally just to hold a battery charger in place that you're basically never going to see anyway. It's really only there for my own benefit. That's going to go right there, and then I can take it in and out if I need to. So this is a micro USB battery charger. Can also run off USB-C by the look of it, but the cable that's included is a USB micro. And then this is going to run to a little USB plug that I bought for this purpose, and that is going to charge my battery. So the good thing is that's also got a spare USB port, so I could use that for like charging my phone or charging my iPad or whatever else I need to do. So this could probably also benefit from a slight cable neatening exercise here, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to plug it in and test it, and hopefully when we turn it on, everything lights up. Alright, so all that is in. Now I just need to put some batteries into charge, ready for the gigs this weekend, and also test this thing out and see if it actually works and see if I've done a good job. So I'm just going to chuck a few batteries in quickly, and then we're going to hit the switch, and if all has gone well, we should see some power. Okay, so my battery charge is turned on. That's a good sign. You can see there's some green lights there. The plugs have lit up. And I'm very pleased to say the front of the rack is also illuminated. So there we go. My in-ear pack has already come on. The guitar wireless hasn't come on yet, so let's turn that on. It's cool because you can actually turn each side on individually as well. This rack light is just for a bit of fun, really, but also so I can see myself on stage. But you can also change the colours there, as you can see. Colours aren't showing up incredibly bright because I'm in my studio right now, but there's a couple of different colour options, and there's one option that changes between different colours as well. I'm going to have to find the right one of those that doesn't annoy our lighting guy too much. I'm sure it will be one of the darker colours. And there's also a switch on this side so you can change the brightness or the kind of dimness of the light as well. So now that that is done, now the very final thing I need to do is load up the drawer with everything I need for a gig. So that is all the stuff that's going to come out of my original box of tricks. That's going to be things like my microphone for miking my amp up, my in-ear pack because I've got a pack already, but also the guys at LD sent me a backup pack as well, which is incredibly useful because mine is getting a bit of wear and tear on the road. So I've got a backup pack, I've got the 2 guitar wireless packs, cables, picks, spare strings, you know, all of the stuff you need to get through a gig. But yeah, there it is. That is my new rack. So I am now going to cut to some shots of this on stage in its, you know, the environment it was designed for. Once it's all plumbed into my rig, I'll shoot some footage at my next gig, which is going to be a couple of days after filming this video, and just kind of show you what it looks like assimilated into my live rig, and I'll show you what I keep in the magic drawer as well. So yeah, let's fast forward to that right now. So there you go, there is my rack build. If you guys have built any racks of your own and, you know, you've come into any of the same problems I have in this video, or you have some solutions to things that I've done which are obviously really stupid things to have done, let me know down below in the comments. If you're watching this far, then the assumption is that I've already done a gig with this setup and it works great. Now, at the time of filming this video, I've not synced anything up. My in-ears are already synced because I've been using them for the last 2 years, but the guitar wireless hasn't been tested yet because I haven't actually gone to a gig. But let's assume that if you're watching this far, that that has happened and all of this is a glaring success. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about my rack build down below in the comments, and let me know if you've done this yourself or you've come into any of these problems in your own experiences with putting rigs like this together. While you're down there doing that, don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching.